Thank you, Lásán Corla. Taoiseach, rural Ireland was dealt another blow recently when Ulster Bank announced plans to shut 22 branches between June and September of this year. 2 of those branches are located in Ardra and Raphoe in my own constituency of Donegal, and once they are closed it will leave these rural towns without any form of banking facility at all. Ulster Bank claims the restructuring of their services is required to meet the ongoing cost challenges of RBS. Yet this is a flawed rationale. Ulster Bank had a recorded profit of €280 million in 2016 and paid a dividend of €1.5 billion to RBS. The truth of the matter is that the banks are not interested in addressing the needs of communities. They will always be driven by profit margins, but while private sector banks restructure their businesses and move online, communities still need banking services to survive. How do you expect rural communities to restructure with them? They can't, Taoiseach, and that means that rural communities are going to suffer as a result. Banking services are vital to the survival of towns. Reports and studies have shown the consequences of banks retreating from rural communities, and not just for customers but for small businesses, which Fine Gael loves so much as well. In the UK, lending to SMEs is reduced by 64%, rising to 104% where the town has no bank left. On average, the town received £1.6 million less in lending the year after a closure. Now, you will reply to me that Ulster Bank is not an Irish institution and your government cannot intervene. I've already got that from the Minister for Finance. But let me remind you, Taoiseach, the consequences facing rural Ireland because you refuse to intervene. An ongoing transport crisis, including the latest bus Éireann dispute, Garda station closures, post office closures, delays in rolling out of broadband, continued emigration and the banking closures. While you may not be able to intervene in the latest bank closures, there are things you can influence. In rural Ireland we have a network of community banks. They are called credit unions. Your government continues to hide behind the regulator, who is doing nothing to facilitate them to develop in a way that can assist their communities and meet the needs of rural towns. For example, funding social housing projects or providing a range of banking services. It's as if, like Ulster Bank, you don't care about the needs of rural communities, and your policies reflect that in prioritising private sector banks over credit unions. As well as Ulster Bank's announcement last week, we heard from An Post in last night's prime time that it's identified 265 post offices as unviable. No doubt we will see plans crystallising over the coming months seeking to close these too. Interestingly, McKinsey were consultants to both Ulster Bank and An Post and were the authors of their strategies for nationwide closures. No wonder these strategies look so alike. It's been over 2 years now, Taoiseach, since the CARE report on the future of the post office network was published. And what implementation have we seen by your government? None. Your government has just allowed the crisis to deepen. Taoiseach, you can avoid taking any responsibility for Ulster Bank and the communities that are being devastated by them. But you cannot wring your hands and claim no responsibility for the destruction of the post office network and the continued stifling of credit unions. Taoiseach, will you actually get the finger out and take some action rather than publish more reports that will only gather dust, running down rural areas and more and more emigration in our communities?
Thanks very much. Deputy Pringle has set out the situation insofar as Ulster Bank is concerned. Deputy Pringle has not referred to the very substantial rural development programme that has been published by government across all departments, and that includes a direction for the provision of 135,000 jobs out of 200,000 to be created over the next number of years in areas outside the Greater Dublin region, including the Deputy's own area. I point out to you, Deputy Pringle, you're very clear on your remarks about the post offices. You might like to know that between 2004 and 2010, there were 345 post offices closed. You didn't refer to any of those at all. For the last 5 years, there have been 37 post offices closed. 37. Now, no post office is going to stay open unless people use it. The government have made a decision that there should be basic banking facilities made available in post offices, and we're working on that. And Minister Ring, in his assessment of a pilot scheme for hub sectors to operate on the basis of 4 post offices to be determined, was accepted by government. The situation is that The credit unions are regulated by the central bank. There were 2 reports produced on credit unions, and the government have implemented those reports and are fully supportive of the credit unions all over the country. And it's not true for you to say that government has no interest in rural Ireland. Far from it. In fact, many of the major policies of this government are factored and focused directly on giving opportunity and incentive for rural Ireland, no less than the recent announcement by the Minister for Communications in respect of the rollout of national broadband. The review of the capital programme for the next number of years is currently commencing and underway, which will provide opportunities for infrastructure throughout all parts of the country, including your own. So I don't accept from you at all that government have reneged or are reneging upon rural Ireland. Every single regional sector has shown a growth in employment. But I think in respect of your opening remarks about the way people do their business now, you should appreciate, I'm sure you do, that I think it's 14,000 a minute is now being spent online by people doing their business. It's all changed. And it's not going to go back the way that it was. I can't speak for Ulster Bank, but we do support the credit unions. We do support the opportunity to provide basic banking facilities in post offices and to give them whatever services can be given. They won't survive unless they're used by people, because you can't have them locked away where everything is dealt with online. If they're social centres, which they are, and very important in terms of communication, it's got to have a range of services that people will use and will want to use, because that's the lifeblood of business as well.
Supplementary question, Deputy Pringle.
Taoiseach, the Rural Action Plan. There's loads of plan and no action. 3 months after the Rural Action Plan has been announced, we are facing a possible closure of 265 post offices, reduced bus services, the scuppering of the National Broadband Plan by your own Minister for Communications. So how does this reflect on your action plan? It shows that there is no action taking place. And your government, people can't use post offices if the post offices can't provide services. And that's the bottom line. 2 years on from the care report, we still haven't seen any implementation in relation to that. All you do is have consultations and open up more consultations, and nothing actually happens. And that is the problem. And you need to actually take the action, and you need to tell the regulator, because I've met the regulator of the credit unions, and they give the perception of being helpful, but all they do is do nothing and place obstacles in the path of the credit unions. Your government can change that policy, and your government can engage and direct the regulator to be a facilitator of the credit unions providing services, not to be a blockage on their path. So you can take action, but unfortunately you're not. You can take action in strengthening the post office network and in strengthening the credit unions and allowing them to facilitate and help people in rural areas and business in rural areas. But you're too slow. You're too slow in dragging out the rollout of these plans.
I thought you might take the opportunity to say that, people who have the challenge of cystic fibrosis in rural Ireland are very encouraged today by the decision made by the Minister and the Department of Health and the HSE in respect of Orcambi and Ballydeco. They live in rural Ireland as well, Deputy Pringle. They live in rural Ireland. Nor did you mention, indeed, the bridge up on Inishowen, the Cockhill Bridge, which is the recipient now of several million as a consequence of interest in rural Ireland. I might say to you that the specific actions and the programme for government commitments in relation to post offices include encouraging social welfare payments at post offices, and the Minister has confirmed that tender. The point is, Deputy Pringle, the point is, if you go through all of the social welfare recipients in Donegal, how many of them want their payments paid into banks as distinct from post offices? So if we are serious, if we are serious, and it's their right and their choice, Deputy. But if we are serious about our post offices, then people have got to use them. But they've got the choice to say. Secondly, we support the rollout of the pilot scheme presented at Cabinet by Minister Ring and adopted by Government for 4 hub post offices to be determined as a pilot scheme. We support also, Lascian Corla, the introduction and the rollout of An Post of the e-payment account system, which will help businesses in post offices. And we we also advance the model of
I now call
community banking, which has been so successful in other countries.
That concludes leaders' questions. I now call on Minister Regina Doherty, who has a proposal.
Proposed that notwithstanding any... Thank you. It's proposed